I made a deadly ice bow ranger that leads to insane clearing, one-shotting every boss or even multiple bosses at the same time with your arrows, and all of that while freezing everything. Meaning nothing really touches you and you just never die and can very comfortably progress. So how does my build work here? Well, most Deadeyes use the lightning arrow meta build, as you might know. But in my opinion, Ice Shot is honestly very underrated and is as powerful and feels like cheating sometimes, because in addition to the high burst, you get insane CC. With this, you'll speed level through all the acts if you're starting with a fresh character, and we'll get into the endgame no problem, where you can inflict further carnage. It's also just more fun than other arrow builds in my opinion, as the feeling of shattering frozen targets is unparalleled. I'm also going to show you various tricks to always, for example, hit your snipes with 100% guarantee, and generally how to get the most out of the Sub-Zero Ranger playstyle that freezes and annihilates everything using his bow. So let's get into it. However, Ice Shot is unlocked at level 31, so it's not right away available. But no, don't start crying. In other words, you just have to quickly get there. To do so as fast as humanly possible while also still incorporating icy elements, we are going to clear everything with Lightning Arrow, socketed with Lightning Attunement and Rapid Attacks, and Lightning Rod socketed with Elemental Armament and Lightning Attunement. The strategy is simple: you spam your Lightning Arrows while clearing everything to quickly get through these maps, and then when facing bosses, drop down a bunch of Lightning Rods while the RP is going on, and then when the fight starts, nuke him with your Lightning Arrows. Now that's the gist of the meta Lightning Arrow / Rod build that has been prevalent for multiple patches now, and you don't really have any other options with your arrows in these early levels, because look at these options. Lightning Arrow is the only real bread and butter spammable shot with good DPS here. However, I have good news, because we don't have to go fully Lightning Arrow, and we can actually incorporate frost elements to prepare for what's to come after level 31 already. That will also actually speed up the process of getting to 31 as well, a win-win situation. For this purpose, we will use Frost Bomb to get exposure going for more damage, Ice-tipped arrows to then bathe the field in ice fragments, Escape Shot as your oh shit button type of ability, especially useful if you find yourself surrounded and don't know what to do. Escape Shot is excellent in those scenarios as it launches you to a safer spot while also freezing whatever is trying to consume you. And then the main big boy ice-rated arrow skill very early on, Freezing Salvo. Now this one deals very respectable damage. The only reason why it can't be your bread and butter is due to its pseudo cooldown of you essentially wanting to use it when it reaches 10 stacks, and that is around every 10 seconds or so, because when it reaches 10 stacks it does the most damage. So in other words, it's too slow for clearing because you can't spam it, but it's great to weave in every time it reaches 10 stacks, because it packs a punch, will kill off most things, and in boss fights it eats away a chunk like it's nothing. And we amp up Freezing Salvo with Hourglass as well, because of the mechanic of you having to wait for 10 seconds anyways to get maximum damage. So Hourglass here is just free damage, and then concentrated effect as well, because otherwise your Freezing Salvo here will spray all over the battlefield. In this way you will get damage in a more concentrated spot, and it will actually also reward you with getting more damage at the same time. So this is a really good support gem for this skill. Regarding the other 3 ice-rated skills, then it does not matter what you use support gem wise in these early levels, just pick some gems from whatever is recommended. Keep in mind that your Frost Bomb's main task here is for the exposure and not damage. And as you see, the inclusion of these frost skills is definitely not a gimmick. They add a lot of utility as well as improve your damage output. Aside from that, I would get Herald of Thunder for your spirit skill once you get your first spirit gem, and Barrage in addition to that as well, to make clearing even faster. It's either that or going the route of crossbows, alternatively if you still want to have that ranger type of playstyle till at least level 31, because you do have perma frost bolts there, for example, if you want to stick to an ice rated team. So you can check that out as well if you already did Lightning Arrow and want to get through those early levels with something else. Good news is that even if you already played with Lightning Arrows, you will blast through level 1 to 31 very quickly anyways, and even for new players, just follow what I just said and you'll be at level 31 before you know it. At level 31 then, a lot of good things happen here, and we can actually start to build this video revolves around. I will talk about support gems later on here. First, it's important to know how and why this build worked so well for me. So Ice Shot is what you unlock here, and it's going to be your bread and butter clear skill for the remainder of your adventure here. These ice arrows that you shoot off will just have a mixture of CCing everything through your freeze and blowing up all your enemies accordingly at the same time. It's a great skill to clear everything and do so very safely as well, due to the heaps of CC ingrained in these shots, which is a really nice pro of going the ice route, because you have the damage and you have also the ice damage inflicting both chill and freeze that gives you a lot of sustain. And another pro here is that at the moment that we unlock Ice Shot, we are around level 30, and that's also the same moment where we unlock the potential to get a dual string bow, and more generally speaking, the modifier of shooting off another arrow when you're shooting with your bow, and that will essentially double your clearing speed. So be on the lookout for a dual string bow come level 31, or later on any bow that comes with this modifier. It is essential for this build, and this bow type, whether it's through your vendor or through the trade, is very easy to get either way, so you should put a very high prior on getting a bow of this type ASAP. Another thing to do right away when you get to Act 3 and level 9 skill gems like Ice Shot is to get Tame Beast and Tame a Beast with some relevant modifiers to make us progress even faster. Haste Aura is pretty much the best modifier in the game for a lot of builds, and it will make us move and cast faster and deal more damage all at the same time. And in this case, I would look for a beast with Haste Aura for sure, but also with multiple modifiers where in addition to Haste Aura you get a good effect like Trail of Ice, for example. Now ice effects are good to scout for here for this build, but I've liked Trail of Ice the most because it will pretty much kill everything that walks on your beast's trail here, even bosses, and it does so very fast. It's a pretty much instant element application. Most beasts that you can tame will also run all around the place, so they'll chill up whatever you're fighting nicely for you, making clearing very smoothly. I would recommend the Invested Barrens near Sebastian right here, where you can reset at the checkpoint as well till you get the desired modifier, so it's very easy to get your desired beast. Just keep resetting till you get it. Now in addition to Ice Shot, we will also use Barrage and Ice-tipped arrows here to essentially act as buffer skills, because we can just use these in between packs to amp up our ice shots. You can also clear without them very quickly, but these two skills just give you something to do while on the run and make it even faster to clear. Barrage amplifies your arrow output, and Ice-tipped arrows will cover the field in exploding ice fragments, which helps out with clearing very nicely, and especially in my setup here, where we will enhance these ice fragments to make them explode instantly and essentially get a bunch of extra of these ice fragments every time we use our ice-tipped arrows. Now to make things even better then, we grab the Herald of Ice for our first spirit buff here, which will of course synergize extremely well with our ice shots, which then in turn activates our Herald here, that then creates even more explosions as a product of the explosion of shattering. So basically TLDR, clearing becomes extremely smooth. We then also keep weaving in Freezing Salvo. You don't really have to use it during clearing now because Ice Shot will definitely do its job there, but it's nice versus elites and bosses, and it can now also replace the functionality of Escape Shot in the sense that it quickly destroys whatever you place your cursor at when shooting off this skill. And then we add one more ingredient to the mix, Tornado Shot. This one will be unlocked a bit later, but it's really good for scenarios where we are essentially surrounded in a 360-degree fashion, as these tornadoes will give us the possibility to spread our ice shots in every single direction at the same time, because they will bounce off these tornadoes if they hit them. But these tornado shots' main purpose is actually more for bossing, because with ice shots you have a one-button clearing build already. But it's still good to keep in mind that if you are getting swarmed from every single direction, you can use these tornado shots to add more power to your output. Finally then, before we get into bossing, one more important ability to discuss is going to be my second spirit gem choice, and that is in fact Mirage Archer with Stormcaller arrow socketed. Now, why did I do such a crazy thing in an ice build, I hear you asking? Well, if you didn't know, Mirage Archer basically just shoots off a bunch of arrows of the type you give it, and the reason why I chose Stormcaller Arrow here is because it has a high chance to shock. And shock will increase your damage output for any type of damage, including cold damage, so I personally have really liked it to enhance my build like that. And this is a great source to get shock. The Mirage Archer has a great reach and he shoots basically all over the place, so it will apply shock on basically whatever you're seeing on screen, while also dealing damage of itself. Having shock consistently applied is very useful in boss fights too, because it's a nice boost to your main shot's damage. And what's even better here is that there is a support gem that allows you to apply exposure when you apply shock, when there's not such a thing for freeze, so we definitely grab that too, and accordingly we will get a 2-in-1 damage increasing juicy effects type of deal with this choice. And you activate your Mirage Archer very easily, by the way, just dodge roll when it's off CD. So let's then get into our bossing strategy. From the intro you saw how we one-shot a lot of bosses, and that's one of the great things about this build. It is a one-button clearing type of build when traversing the maps, but for bosses it's really good too. Your strategy here is to drop some tornado shots, load up barrage and ice-tipped arrows while the RP is going on or while the boss is still in the loading up phase, then dodge roll to proc your Mirage Archer, which will inflict shock and exposure quickly as well, then go ham with your ice shots and freezing salvo till it freezes. The combination of tornado shot, barrage, ice-tipped arrows and our Mirage Archer here at the same time will pretty much freeze the boss instantly and apply a bunch of ailments like shock as well, and then freezing salvo in addition to that builds up a bunch of frost quickly as well while dealing great damage. Then when the boss is frozen, you snipe for the one shot. Easy peasy. And snipe is just a timing skill. If you get the timing right, you'll pretty much always one shot any boss here, because it does insane damage in a ice build like this with the right properties that I've definitely fished for to get all of them going. And even if you're not really there yet, well, it's usually just a few more ice shots or a freezing salvo to finish out the fight. How do you time snipe perfectly though? Well, what I do is pay attention to the glow on my glove. When it reaches the outer edge of the glove, that's where the perfect timing interval will essentially start. So right before the glow would otherwise crawl onto your skin, if you release it right there, you will get the perfect timing, as also indicated with the glowing circles surrounding your arrows. When it's not timed properly, you will know for sure because you'll just shoot off arrows in a mundane way. And in boss fights, when you freeze them, you'll have enough time to reposition yourself because they're frozen for quite some time, so you can make sure to keep track of this glow. And in the same time frame, I would also re-enable barrage as well, so your snipe shot is then repeated through barrage, and it will snipe with multiple shots instead of just one shot, and you'll get a bunch of extra damage that way too. Before obtaining Mirage Archer and Tornado shots, you can just keep using the old strategy of Frost Bomb for exposure and some of the older mentioned skills, and you'll still one-shot a lot of the earlier bosses too. Now during clearing, when you come up to a very tanky elite, it's essentially the same principle. You clear around the elite, and it will also usually freeze the elite in the process as well, and then you simply just snipe the elite and you will one-shot it too. So our bossing strat here summarized, this is what it will look like, and as you saw from the footage, it's really good for not just one-shotting bosses, but also freezing them very early on in the combat cycle, meaning you won't die to them. Great stuff. So with that then, everything related to clearing and bossing and strategy for my build here is covered. And all of it is very easy to do, as you saw. Okay, so let's then move on to our setup, you know, our support gems, our passive tree, etc, etc, all the goodness essentially. And before we do that, I want to mention that I will put this build on Mobalytics as well, so you can check everything once again in all tranquility, you know, remind yourself of all the highlights. Also, make sure to subscribe, like the video, do all that stuff, so you are always up to date with my content, and you know, it's a win-win situation. Let's get then into our support gem. Starting off with our big boy one-shotting boss ability, Snipe. For Snipe, we run Elemental Armament 2 to just boost its damage. Hourglass, logical choice since you will only use it in very specific scenarios, so the cooldown penalty here doesn't matter at all, and it gives you a nice whopping 30% more damage. Window of Opportunity 1, with the trick that I showed you, you will always get your perfect timing window, so again, this is just a nice damage increase. And then Ambrosia. Now in our passive tree, I have chosen for some elemental damage, and Ambrosia gives you a bunch of extra lighting damage in turn for consuming some mana flask charges, so it's actually a really nice damage boost in my opinion, because at least in this setup, you will practically never use your mana flask during clearing or bossing realistically. So it's just a very easy way to amplify your elemental damage like that. Regarding your companion then, you just want to make sure that it stays alive as long as possible essentially. So we give it things like Meat Shield to make it more tanky, Elemental Armory to give it more elemental resistances, and then Last Gasp to, you know, stay longer on the field even when it dies. The most important thing here is just that the companion stays on the field to give you that haste aura and to give you that trail of ice. Ice Shot then, we're just going to amplify it with Elemental Armament, Cold Attunement, and then also make sure to increase its attack speed with rapid attacks. This will lead into a more smooth clearing because you can just spam your ice shots much more often. And then also Fork, which is really nice on this ability because it will make it so that every time you shoot off your ice shots, you'll essentially saturate more of the battlefield and kill off more things in a quicker fashion. It just feels really nice to run Fork on this skill. Ice-tipped arrows then, like I already said, we're going to make it so that the entire battlefield is essentially engulfed in ice fragments, and to do that, we grab Nova projectiles. Then we also grab Short Fuse, preferably 2 when you unlock it, to make sure those ice fragments explode ASAP. And then finally, cooldown recovery 2, so we can use ice-tipped arrows as much as possible. Mirage Archer then, I already went over these. Stormcaller Arrow, Lightning Attunement, and Lightning Exposure. And then for Tornado Shot, as I already explained, we used it essentially as a tool to make our arrows go all over the battlefield. So we grab Durability to make sure that our Tornado Shots stay as long as possible, but also Overabundance too, so we get 2 of them at the same time, and that just helps out with that goal very well. And then also Rapid Attacks too, to fasten the process quite significantly. Herald of Ice then, we grab Magnified Area 2, so it covers a larger portion of the battlefield. Frozen Spite, really nice actually, because it will create even more ice fragments, and that synergizes nicely with our ice-tipped arrows. And then also Elemental Armament 2 for a damage boost. Then Barrage, very important here, cooldown recovery 2, so we can actually use it a lot more often, because this gives you a whopping 30% increased cooldown recovery rate, and that is very noticeable. And then Perpetual Charge and Heightened Charges to just get more value out of the purpose of this skill. Then finally, Freezing Salvo. I already went over this in the level 1 to level 31 segment, but like I said, Concentrated Area and Hourglass, and then we also give it Ice Bite for the 3rd gem, because this skill freezes enemies very quickly actually, and with Ice Bite you will get rewarded for that, and you'll get a nice extra damage boost. Now there's one skill that I didn't went over here, and that's called Shots, and this is from our Deadeye Ascendancy. With this build we will go into Deadeye. I think it's just overall the best, but you can definitely do it with other Ascendancies too. It's not that important. However, Called Shots is a pretty nice ability here, and we use Freezing Mark with it to essentially make freezing everything extremely fast, and then we amplify that with Magnified Area 2, Elemental Armament 2, and Cold Mastery. Now let's then get into our passive tree. So for our Deadeye, I went with Projectile Speed into Point Blank, and then Called Shots here as well. And then when you have more points, you just grab Projectile Speed and Endless Munitions. And then when you get into Endgame, you respec, you just grab Projectile Speed, Point Blank into Endless Munitions, but then also importantly grab this line, because this will give you Tailwind and it will help out a lot with your survivability. Now let's get into actually the passive tree for when you are leveling. And the purpose of this passive tree for leveling is to get through the acts as fast as humanly possible. And for that purpose, we are going to spec heavily into damage, of course, because you really don't need evasion and defenses as much as possible when you're leveling, and especially as this build, because you get a lot of sustain already from, you know, just freezing and chilling targets. So in your passive tree, you just pat like this, projectile damage, you grab Clean Shot, keep patting downwards, and you essentially want to go to this bow, grab these nodes, grab Maiming Strike and attack damage boosting nodes on the way as well. Then when you start ramping up your elemental damage, you go back here, you grab Primal Sundering, you grab things like Catalysis and the nodes next to it, and then also grab Acceleration for faster skill speed and some movement speed increase. Then when you get your first Herald, these are very good skills to have too, so you want to spec into these as well, Calming Calamity. And when you get your Companion, so around level 30, these are also really good skills for your damage boost. You just pat like this up to Inspiring Ally, and Inspiring Ally is actually really good because it makes the increases and reductions to your companion damage also apply to you, and it's very easy to get a good companion. Then later on, we get more cold damage, lightning damage, and you get, you know, your Mirage Archer. You grab also Vile Wounds, because we will essentially spam our enemies with a bunch of elements, so it's a nice node to have for sure. We then also path into this, grab Harness the Elements, grab all these nodes here surrounding it up until this one, because this one is catered to your ice damage and will increase your freeze buildup while also increasing your elemental damage. And these three nodes are also nice because they increase the chance to shock, but at the same time they increase your elemental damage in general and not just lightning damage. Then when you get a good Quiver, definitely spec into these nodes up until Master Fletching will help out a lot as well. Then when you get some more levels, you can go back here, grab the movement speed nodes into Blur, and when you get those 30% or higher movement speed boots, this is really nice to scale off that as well. Then for your final levels, you can go ahead and grab Split Shot, which will synergize nicely with your forking, and we also grab On Sight here. I actually really like this because we use Called Shots with Freezing Mark, and with On Sight, every time you run past a group of mobs, what happens is that the Freezing Mark will apply, but everything surrounding it will get blinded thanks to this node, and it's actually really good. And then finally, you just grab these nodes as well up until Falcon Technique, and when you have grabbed everything here like this, you will be definitely in Endgame, finished all of the campaigns and acts, etc, etc. And when you get to Endgame, of course, you respec a bit. You know, you don't really need things like Split Shot anymore. You don't really need to pierce the heart. You will get a lot of damage from having a really good bow, and you will start respecing into evasion, maintaining sustain in the Endgame. Then finally, for gear, most important thing is just your bow. You want to always be on the lookout at vendors and trading for an upgrade to your bow essentially, and later on any bow that fires an additional arrow. And then specific things that you want to be on the lookout for in terms of modifiers are more physical damage, adding lightning damage is also really good for proccing shock, attack speed, more levels to your bow skills and things of that nature. And then also of course your quiver is very important. Again, more attack speed, more physical damage, more cold damage, but also more lightning damage for shock. And I would also, in terms of gear, focus on things like these that are now written on the screen. Especially mana on kill is nice because then you just never have to drink essentially, and clearing just becomes really smooth. So you grab gloves with good damage modifiers, you grab rings with good damage modifiers, and you'll be good to go. And then for endgame, things will shift, of course. You will focus more on capping out your elemental resistances to 75%. Endgame is really just like in the previous patches. It's exactly the same thing you will do. And for this build, you are looking for an evasion and energy mix as your basis. And that was it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck and enjoy playing your deadly Icebow Ranger.